Yeah, thanks for organizing this meeting. So I think it has been really inspiring already. So my focus is also, I'm also part of the open source of the OpenEuroLLM consortium, but the talk is more general about hill climbing pathways for academia to frontier AI, and I think a lot of the problems that Hector mentioned in his talk, I think are really a challenge for academia, because in the end it's basically also building teams that can execute and hill climb on value creation pipelines almost. And so I think also this product is an important aspect. And so we are figuring in academia that basically in the past we have been at the forefront of the developments, and now where scale matters, it's we have to figure out how to actually shape the future of frontier AI. And this is also, by the way, related to what is known as the European paradox for more than 20 years, that somehow people are puzzled that even though we are great in research, this kind of doesn't carry over towards economic success. So in this talk, I basically want to cover a quick overview on OpenEuroLLM. And there I'm responsible for open source community building. And I want to talk about a benchmarking idea that we want to pursue, and a proposal for an open pipeline standardization effort. And so I think this is an ideal setup to discuss and get feedback from you. And then I also want to give a quick overview of the Elias Alliance. And there, at the next summit coming up, basically we will try a new format of a conference, which is basically also focusing on, maybe focused research organizations and projects, so very focused efforts, and then also a new type of papers that I would like to get your feedback on. So first, OpenEuroLLM, actually the main guy, our main coordinator, is sitting there, Jan Heidels. So here you can also get more information on the project. Give you a quick overview. So we don't have released the model yet. So we are still working towards that goal. But it's also intended to be fully open, with a permissive data, 36 plus languages, and obviously compliant with EU regulations. It is a consortium funded by the EU, and with 20 partners from 9 European countries, and coordinated by Charles University. So here are the partners. We have universities, we have companies and research organizations, and HPCs partners in this consortium. And so these are the people, like the work package lead, so that you get a rough idea who's driving this. And Jenya here is also here, is also very involved in the model development. So this has been, so obviously there are papers coming out already. So this is the first paper on scaling laws, or developing from scratch the
scaling trend, not a scaling
trends. Yes.
We're going there.
We're going there. And also HPLT 3.0 and other publications are coming out on the multilingual data sets, multi-SYNT data sets, etc., etc. So I think, I hope at the next, so basically the first releases are planned for this year. So I hope at the next summit we might be able to actually have also a model to talk about. So now I want to use the time to talk more about community building. I think it's great to see here all these efforts for open source models, but it's also would be nice to find ways to make these efforts even more collaborative than telling each other from time to time what we have been doing, but that things could add up even more. So at OpenEuroLLM, we also thought that basically, actually, for instance, we tried to get Switzerland on board before, but that was not possible by EU law. So we usually have a good relationship, and then under Horizon calls this works, but for OpenEuroLLM, this was basically under Digital Europe, this was not possible. But nevertheless, we thought, okay, we will have a partnership board and try to get people basically a discussion early on. And so that is basically the spirit in which we are doing this. So but now how to do this more concrete? One thing that was mentioned already is basically how can we work towards more a more joint understanding of evaluating models, maybe not only at the very end when they are released, but early on, like it is maybe known in academia from things like ImageNet also that have been really useful to inform each other about what interventions are most productive. And skip this. So we have been discussing a competition design, and I would also be happy to get feedback here with two tracks. One would be basically a robust, scalable intervention benchmark. So the question is, how can we reliably infer early on which interventions are useful and actually also still are going to be useful when we scale up. And so the idea here is basically to use details that are in this paper, and to have a fixed evaluation pipeline on post-training and with supervised fine-tuning within win rate comparison, for instance, against Grand3 with GPT-4 as a judge. So I can only scratch on this briefly. I would have had more slides. We can talk in detail maybe in one of the discussions in the afternoon or so. For the second track, so this is basically about robust scaling laws. The second track would be something like we call it a microchat benchmark or 10 times nanochat, which is more about production ready setup. And it could be, for instance, a win rate comparison against small LM3 before it's judged. Okay, so this basically benchmark, but in terms of communicating even clearer beyond the full model releases, the key idea would be that today the unit of progress is rather a trained model, and it would be cool if it was possible that if the unit of progress would be basically a measured intervention. And in order to do so, basically, it might be possible, and it's more like I'm not 100% sure if it's possible, but I dare to suggest that basically we might be able to come up with a lightweight, open, non-prescriptive standard for specifying logging and reporting large-scale language model training runs. So I think there are already very useful training frameworks, reproducibility toolkits, benchmarking suites that improve local reproducibility within certain communities. Marine is, for instance, one very nice framework as well. And interestingly, but usually those don't generalize from one community to the next community. And so often things are rediscovered within each community. For instance, how you have to stabilize the training and so on, which you can also find in these reports. And yeah, so the question would be whether we can come up with a standardization across independent labs. And so I'm kind of thinking here similar to open scientific data formats such as FASTQ in genomics, or performance benchmarks such as Bethge, which define how empirical results are measured and reported. And even HTML has been basically very successful in solving a problem of making browsers hardware independent. So I think one problem in language model training is obviously that even if you basically have kind of the same hardware setup, it might not generalize from one setup to the next, and we have to find ways to make all these detailed specifications that are impossible to communicate in a paper in a more automatic way that basically encode this in a, that we really know where the differences come from. And so the adoption strategy would be that this is not basically not have to convince before everyone how to do this, but rather as a post hoc procedure where one can kind of export the training run into an open pipeline bundle workflow, such that it's mainly about finding ways to compare the different training procedures and thus making clear what the interventions are. Maybe and finally, we cannot expect that basically we get bitwise reproducibility. There will be noise, and so we also have to figure out what are the right levels of reproducibility. All right, so that is still very high level, and there might be some devils in the details that we still need to figure out, but I think it would be good starting to discuss this. Now, I have a watch here, so I also want to talk more about the ELISA Alliance, which is basically a part of the Alice network that tries to work on basically the interface towards entrepreneurship and also frontier AI model building. So this was a workshop in 2024. ELISA here stands for European Leadership in Innovation with AI in Science, and basically seeks to translate AI capabilities to widespread public benefit, inspire a new generation of value creators with AI in science. So basically, I think in academia, we have, so academia tries to stay away usually from value creation and tries to have general knowledge to basically try to make that knowledge rather independent from value in general, from subjective preferences and so on. Yet I think it's basically in our times where even science is created or knowledge is created more and more with AI, becomes more and more difficult to ignore that basically the human brain is really always seeking for value creation. And so I feel like by just making knowledge independent of value creation, we might academia might have a blind spot and should rather find a way how to address it in a heads-on fashion. That means not basically just trying to do the same as say Silicon Valley or economics does, but rather finding a pluralistic, knowledge-driven approach to this, and also making that part of the education. So at the Copenhagen meeting, we also had together with Arnold, organized a workshop on science for AI at the AI Summit. And there was also Ives presented, so I think it's a good mix. I also wanted to mention here an upcoming Frontier AI challenge from Sprint where the deadline is end of May. So basically, I want to embed this in a bigger context of possibilities. So basically, when you're working on LLMs, you might also be interested in building products, as we heard. And so this challenge will support in the end 3 teams with non-dilutive funding. In total, it's 125 million. So it might be interesting. And it's also possible for non-Germans, even though it's a German funding agency. Okay, so the ELISA Alliance consists of, or started with 8 nodes in different cities. At this Copenhagen event, we also had a Sciencepreneurship Award that will basically become an annual award. We are working on an innovation PhD track together with Alice, which is going to happen probably next year in full force, and this year as a pilot. And it's also trying to bring open source community building together. And then there's the AI Launchpad. And in October, there will be Frontier AI Summit organized. So it will actually be in Stuttgart. And so there's this, I wanted to bring that up here also to get some feedback on this, because it's supposed to be a new format, which is like this meeting here, trying to focus on AI that is built rather than AI that is talked about, like in papers. And so the one format will be that, so basically we have the 8 ELISA nodes, and then we organize this together with the German AI centers. So we have at least 12 nodes there, and each node will present one FRO project, so one focused research organization project. So you can think of this as something like a bigger effort that you are doing, like a product. And so each should be presented in 20 minutes. That can ideally also generate something like a data flywheel. So for instance, in Tübingen, we will probably present an effort. So we won the procurement of a so-called AIS, adaptive intelligence system, that is run by all German state governments to bring basically a unified education platform from industry. Super. To German schools. And so we are developing an open source platform for this, which contains of an education hub for open, or basically it's a free market and a AI tutoring system. And so that is an effort where you can actually hill climb then on the data that you're getting, and it's basically getting in touch with the real world. And so I'm expecting that we have lots of such efforts presented there, and it's also open to a few more. I wrote something like 12+3, and I think it would be great also to so we will also invent foundations and investors there, so that when you present there, you can also get money maybe. And also the next Sciencepreneurship Award will basically awarded to one of those activities. So there's also backward compatible. So last time it was Casp AI with Max Welling winning this from Amsterdam. And so you can say that is also focused research or frontier AI effort. And so that's how we think of doing this in the future. Maybe we also can announce new ELISA nodes there. There will be a call for ELISA nodes. And finally, I'm thinking, or we are thinking of having a call for impact papers as an extension to an accepted top-tier paper, within the last 2 years, where you then basically propose how that scientific advance can be turned into a product or some impact activity. And so I hope with that we can start thinking more about the value creation aspect of scientific advances within the academic community. Again, I'm not 100% sure about this format of impact papers, so if you have ideas about that, please let me know. And this was my talk. I think I'm just in time. Thanks for your attention, and happy to get your feedback.
Thanks. So we actually had a request for questions on the impact papers. So maybe people have thoughts on that. Or another question. Yes, Daniel.
So now a question, thanks, Matthias, for presenting. And I think the question that you raised about, what is missing in Europe or in collaboration, I think would like to connect back to what Andreas basically was presenting this morning. I totally agree, Andreas, having worked together in Atlas for many years, there are many, many differences. But having seen both communities from the side, I think the basic question is always the same. We've heard it, and even I'll ask, how big are our teams? With our small teams of 25, 30 people typically, and how can we build something that basically brings the work out of these teams together? And with Alice and Elias, I think this is the good starting points. Can you tell us a little bit, how do you see that, what you heard from how CERN works and how you basically at Alice work at the moment? Is there missing something, or do we have already everything set up to collaborate in this kind of global way altogether?
I mean, I think for many things, it's really also important that we do have also private efforts and so on, right? So we have to find, basically also as an academia, maybe find ways to mentor people in how to build teams that are good in execution, in building pipelines. So basically, I'm a bit worried that there's a lot of leapfrogging talk, right? And so you cannot leapfrog the iteration of getting a data pipeline working and scaling things up. So I think like at least 90% of frontier AI efforts have to do that it's a continual collective learning machine with a focus team, and you have to know exactly like what the value dimension is that you try to climb on. And I think that is something that I'm still missing in many contexts. And so I think I think this is like this, it's also small, right? So we have a very small meeting here. We have huge conferences, academic conferences on papers. Oftentimes people learn this in internships at industry rather than, in efforts like Apertus or the OIMO and so on, right? Because these are still very small in terms of numbers.
Okay, let's thank the speaker again.